There are countless stories of people who immigrated from Europe and made a name for themselves here in St. Louis. But Patrick Murphy's story is about somebody who did it the other way around. It's an unusual story. In fact, I think St. Louis may be the only American city that can legitimately claim as one of its own a world-famous British poet.
When the Central West End home of T.S. Eliot went up for sale, it caught my eye. In high school, they made us read The Wasteland, The Hollow Men, and the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So I knew he was from St. Louis, and that he was a great 20th century poet, playwright, and critic. I knew that the Broadway hit Cats was adapted from his book of verse, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. I even knew that he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1948. But to be honest, reading his work was, for me, a chore. But I was curious. So I met realtor Suzanne Hunn at the open house in the 4400 block of Westminster, along with the chair of Washington University's English department.
So is the house today pretty much the way it was when T.S. Eliot and his family lived here?
It absolutely is. It has been lovingly maintained and restored, the original woodwork, everything from the pocket doors to the picture rails.
Now this picture on the wall over here, is that T.S. Eliot and his family actually in this room?
Yes, it is. Throughout the house you will see pictures periodically in the different rooms with the Eliot family. Here's the kitchen, the original floors.
This is where Mama Eliot then would have made breakfast for little T.S.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a beautiful house, just the kind of place a patrician St. Louis family would have lived at the turn of the century. T.S.'s father was a prominent businessman, and his grandfather, William Greenleaf Eliot, was instrumental in the founding of Washington University, the St. Louis Public Schools, the St. Louis Art Museum, Mary Institute, and a lot of other major local institutions.
Eliot was actually born here at 2635 Locust, which you can see as a parking lot now. There's a plaque over there on the sidewalk commemorating him. The Eliot family was well off, but in the 1890s, this neighborhood was already starting to get pretty seedy with smoky factories, saloons, and brothels. But Tom's father wanted to stay in the neighborhood because his mother lived just right around the corner. In 1905, the family moved to the Central West End.
For a major literary figure, there aren't a lot of public tributes to Thomas Stearns Eliot around town. There's a star in the University City Walk of Fame. On the back wall of Christ Church Cathedral, there's a plaque. And tucked away in a corner of the main library's rare books department is a tablet commemorating his life. But that's not surprising. Eliot might be a hometown boy made good, but he found his identity by leaving St. Louis behind for the East Coast and eventually England, where he became a British subject.
So he might have walked up and down Westminster and said, yeah, this is very nice, but I can do better.
Importance is established elsewhere, not here. When he was East, he was a Midwesterner in the East, right? He was of Northern identification, but he had a Southern drawl, which he very vigorously sought to remedy. His identity markers for him growing up were always double, and so he was always not where he was. And that's an interesting condition to inhabit.
But that's a little bit like St. Louis, too, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not really northern city. It's not really a southern city. It's not really eastern western. It's always had sort of an identity.
Well, and that's why they should recognize the house that he sort of grew up in as a historic site of St. Louis. I think he embodies that sort of border status that St. Louis has.
Eliot was a modernist, linking tradition to the world of the 20th century, a time when 2 world wars shook the foundations of Western life, and scientific theories like relativity and quantum physics changed our understanding of the nature of the universe and our place in it. Every year, the T.S. Elliot Society holds an annual get-together, usually in St. Louis, where academics and fans from around the world let their hair down and chat about their favorite author. This year, they celebrated his 120th birthday. That's me trying to hold my own with a group of eminent T.S. Eliot scholars.
In our time, we're coming to understand that this is a guy who loved pop culture. He loved jazz. He loved dancing. Like whenever friends would come visit him from America, he'd get them to teach him the latest dance steps in New York. He wrote a fan letter to Eartha Kitt. He corresponded with Groucho Marx. This is a guy who was fascinated by popular culture. But when you and I were young, our teachers were telling us, oh no, this is only serious. You know, we talk philosophy and whatnot. He did that too. What I love about Eliot is that he bridges the two things. You know, the world of elite, high-class culture and learning, but also real lives of ordinary people.
And it seems that even though Eliot left St. Louis never completely left him.
Most of the images in his early poetry particularly come from the streets of St. Louis. And so he walked on those streets. You know, the images from his poetry are from St. Louis. And he says so in old age. You know, in old age he makes the circle back to St. Louis.
Later in his life, again looking back, seeing that growing up in this city at that particular time, in this particular place, was extremely and particularly influential on him. He talks about how anyone who has not lived in, let alone grown up in, a river town cannot understand rhythm the way someone who has done will understand that. He says, I do not know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god, sullen, untamed, and intractable. His rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom, in the rank ailanthus of the April dooryard, in the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle in the winter gaslight. The river is within us, and the sea is all about us.
In 1953, T.S. Eliot returned to St. Louis for the celebration of Washington University's 100th anniversary, where he spoke of his feelings for his boyhood home.
Many other memories have invaded my mind since I received the invitation to address you today. But I think these are enough to serve as a token of my thoughts and feelings. I am very well satisfied with having been born in St. Louis. In fact, I didn't say I think I am fortunate to have been born here rather than in Boston or New York or London.